Welcome, everybody. I'm Ann Katz. I'm Director of Arts Wisconsin, the state's community cultural development organization. We are here at a webinar on mobilizing the arts for older adults in the age of coronavirus and beyond with Ann Basting, MacArthur Fellow, UWM professor. And
hey, I'm introduced.
Timeslips. Oh, that's right. Sorry. I have to introduce Karen first. Let me do a little housekeeping. Thank you, Karen. I should be looking at my notes. Everyone is muted as they come on, except for the presenters. We're going to hear from our presenters, and at about 10:55, we're going to experiment with break rooms. Some of you may have done this already on Zoom in the last month and a half, for sure. I don't know how many people will be on there, but I believe that we will be able to sort people into break rooms. And basically, you'll have about 10 minutes to talk about the presentation and come up with a question or two that you want to ask our presenters. And if we can get to those questions at the end of the break room, great. If not, then we will incorporate them into the mix of and get the information out to everybody. This session is being recorded, and I think that's it. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen to introduce herself, and then she will take it away from there.
And also just to call attention to the chat feature of this thing, those of you who haven't used Zoom, please feel free to use that. So hi and welcome from me too. I'm Karen Geschko, Assistant Director at the Wisconsin Arts Board. The Wisconsin Arts Board is Wisconsin's state arts agency. Every state has one. We are funded by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Wisconsin State Legislature. We are 4 staff, 15 governor-appointed board members, and work that has never felt more important, and that we are privileged and humbled to be able to do in this really tumultuous time. It is this same tumultuous time that has prompted us and longtime partner Arts Wisconsin to move into this space of producing resource sessions. And specifically today to respond to the interest that we've heard about connecting the arts and elders more closely. And we are truly fortunate today to have 2 remarkable people who are donating their expertise and enthusiasm in that realm. First, I'll introduce Jennifer Ellis, Program Director at the Gerontology Aging Services Department of Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College up in Superior. I became a fan of Jen's a few years ago when I met her in Superior to talk about the arts and aging work that she was promoting amongst her gerontology students. Her in-depth understanding of the work being done in Wisconsin to connect elder care with the arts and creativity and creative activity really impressed me, as did her knowledge of the people doing strong work throughout our state. She's a great dot connector, making sure that people know how to access resources and to connect with each other. So Jen, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And Ann Basting, artist, founder of Timeslips, which is an international network of artists and caregivers committed to bringing joy to late life, and a MacArthur Fellow, recognized for her work in that realm. And thinking about how to introduce this amazing woman, I can think of no better way than to tell you how she sees the arts in her own words as artist and as gerontologist. She says, the arts are a way of being in relationship, of seeing and shaping the world. My work brings the tools of imagination and creative expression to care, relationships, and systems in order to foster healing through community building. We cannot heal without story. And I'm also going to make a plug for her soon-to-be released book, Creative Care, A Revolutionary Approach to Dementia and Elder Care. And when I say soon-to-be released, I do mean on May 19th, less than 2 weeks. So woo, Ann. Ann B., thank you for being with us this morning. Okay, so we've structured this session today to first hear Jen and Ann's views on this work, encouraging people also who are participating in this session to put their questions and comments and favorite resources, please, in the chat box along the way. If you have some stories that you want to share, please do that there. We'll be capturing that. And then go through some of those questions for Ann Basting and Jen. And then, as Ann Kat said, do an experiment where we break out into smaller groups so you all can engage a bit more directly with each other, and more on that from Ann later, right when we're about to get started. So first, the questions. And those questions, the first one we'll go for is to set the stage, so to speak. What are you doing? What are you seeing in aging care in these days that you want to be sure our participants here know about? And Jen or Ann Basting, you can decide who goes first on that one.
Jen, that's your territory. You can start on that one.
All right, thank you. It's an honor to be here, so thank you to everyone for allowing me to be a part of your day. As we think about what we're seeing out there, you know, perhaps a lot of what we're seeing is informed by social media, the news, and what I really want us to think about is where we are in relation to our older adults, how people are talking about our older adults across communities in this country, as well as internationally. Pardon my co-host here, there might be more. And I just want to think about, I want you all to think about ways that we are all going to be able to positively contribute in maybe new ways that we haven't thought of before. What I can tell you is there's beautiful and amazing work that's coming out of this. There's people thinking in ways that I don't think we've ever thought before. There are collaborations that are happening that are just, I think sometimes they bring a chill to me because I think it's amazing what's happening. Just some kind of highlights of what's happening. Certainly we can think about our long-term care institutions that are struggling, you know, caring for residents that have varying levels of disability. Certainly dementia is a big piece of that, and how we're able to support them. Sadly, our institutions are relatively socially isolated just from family and friends. But also, I want us to also think about the staff, the people on the front lines who are supporting older adults in home and community-based services, as well as our institutional settings. Some other things I'm thinking about, the grief, the ambiguity, ways that people are processing that in ways that we can actually engage the arts communities to think about that a little bit differently. And then the last thing that I want us to think about are some of those other areas that maybe we're not thinking about. Thinking for me, the grandparents who are raising grandchildren and are now becoming educators. Other communities where people are struggling with having the technology that they need to do things like we're able to do today. So I think that there are ways for us to all positively contribute. And I think as Ann had said, and you made reference to, Karen, it's about the relationships that we have. And in our prep call for this, it's about kind of going old school, going back to those ways that we've connected in our communities in ways that maybe we haven't thought about in a while. So, Ann, anything to contribute to that?
I would say, yes, thank you for that, Jen. And one of the benefits of this conversation is just, it's great to be in conversation with you. I would say also that this is a moment of compounded isolation because we've done a fantastic job of isolating our elders for a really long time now. And so the isolation is actually compounded. And the fascinating thing in this moment, I think, is you can feel a palpable, for I think one of the first times, a yearning to connect with older adults and not in a pity structure of giving, but of a relational component. I think this desire to connect is earnest from both sides for the first time. That it's reorienting that relational, that sense of relationship between non-elders and elders, or people with disabilities and people who are lucky not to yet be disabled. I would also say that this moment is revealing profound, you can You can feel it, profound disparities, health disparities. Our African-American communities, our Native populations, oh my God, it's shocking what's happening. We've known this. Again, we've been isolating older adults. We've created systems for them to remain isolated and for us to put off thinking about aging as long as possible. Mortality has been on the edge of, if you're privileged to have mortality on the edge of your knowledge circle, we have put it as far away as we can. And this moment where care homes are, older adults are in their rooms, pretty much there's minimal communal dining, minimal communal activities, maybe small groups that are social, I refuse to say socially distanced, just distanced. There's an incredible burst of creativity happening that you mentioned, Jen, which is, I think, people overcoming some of these boundaries. And that is, I think, what we're really targeted to speak to today, which is thrilling to see how rapidly we're trying to connect and overcoming some of these separations. I think that's my addition to that.
That's great, thank you. And I also want to invite you to, I know you're focused and beautifully so on elder care facilities, and just inviting you to open that up a little bit to also just think about the elders who are not, necessarily in care facilities, but who connect with senior centers, but who may be living alone, in their homes or houses or whatever. So that broader community of people. And I appreciate your, go ahead.
That's 85–90% of older adults. And I certainly didn't mean to give the perception that that's where our focus is, because we're working with the well-check phone systems that are in place that have popped up. That's part of the creative energy around all of this moment. Linking volunteers to phone tree systems to do well checks for all the people who used to be at the senior centers, which are closed down, all the people with dementia and the family caregivers who were going to in-person support groups or memory cafes that are all shut down. Rapid uptake of technology for them, but still, as we know, I think we're from all over the state, that technology, again, is at a fault line of disparity of access and, economic access, but also just broadband and Wi-Fi access. So it's a puzzle to try to figure out how to connect, and we can go into it more. I think the old school that Jen, you were talking about, mail. I love the mail. It's a simple thing. It's a beautiful thing. I had a long, terribly ugly cry this morning after I got an email from my friend in Italy talking about who's on our list for Timeslips of all the nursing homes and care systems that are accepting cards and letters, just talking about how important all those have been. So mail and phone and then other forms of more elaborate technology.
And I find that particularly intriguing because, so many arts groups have been, and the marketing gurus say, we're talking about online, we're talking social media, we're talking all this stuff. And so many arts groups, for cost as well as time, et cetera, have gone away from certainly as much mailing hard copy as they used to. And so what an interesting time to revisit that, especially if there is extra time to devote to that kind of outreach, whether it's to patrons, audience members, community members, whatever, to not overlook that piece. And I would invite participants on this call, if you're doing anything like that, or if you're seeing work like Anne and Jen just described being done, please put that in the chat box too. That would be awesome. All right, I'm going to move us into the second question here, which are, I think we've already sort of touched on, but what are inspirational models for connecting the arts and elders?
Who wants to start that one? Well, I tried to pull my thoughts together here, and I've just been I'm kind of, let's just all take a breath and say we're all a little overwhelmed. I hope I'm not the only one, but part of it has been in this moment, just watching the generosity and the creativity pouring out of people trying to figure out how to reach and connect and help. Theater companies sewing masks. I mean, it's incredible to watch and experience. To me, the really inspiring things are when people can kind of organize themselves, which is also tricky, especially if you're adapting to an online environment for your workspace. Timeslips has been virtual since 2013, so we've had a little bit of a running start. The programs that are inspiring to me are the ones that are finding an authentic connection, looking at, like, starting there, and part of that starts with the acknowledgement that we're all aging. We see our own mortality. We feel the pain of social isolation. If you're located if you serve a very specific geographic location, and among your staff, who do an asset map or a mapping of your connections to older adults in your life. To some people on the team that you're part of, do they have parents that they're worried about? Where are they living? How are they connected to a system? Are they getting help? Go to that system and connect there, so that it makes sense for who you are and what you do, and to map your own resources. Do we have a lobby full of postcards that we could, offer as prompts for people in Meals on Wheels? Do we have, what do we have? Could we do virtual tours of our building, or can we partner with a phone tree system and offer music through the phone system? Really sort of looking at who you are, your own fears, your team's fears. Is your team have students at home who need focusing? Could you mobilize them and help your team with their own at-home issues by linking generationally to an aging organization? So the first part is those organizations that are doing that. An example would be, I partnered with, I did an asset map. Who do I have at my UWM community there's a classroom, Kim Beckman's classroom. I wrote down the name of the class, Design and Visual Communications program, the Design for Good program. Suddenly all the service learning programs have no way to connect. And all the students are dispersed. They're at home. So what do you do? And I thought, I can link them to the systems that we have. So they created a book of over 300 pages of prompts and activities that they're turning into a PDF and downloadable for free that we'll distribute. They're postcards, kindness cards, mural activities, biography and pen pal. And it's been a stupendous learning experience for them. And then think about that as a tool and a resource that we can make available to people. The Student Artist in Residence program, which is where we have student artists who are embedded and living in long-term care communities. One was also partnering with Islands of Brilliance, which brings creativity to people with autism, young people with autism. Suddenly they had to move out. How could they have their spring celebration? So they're doing it in a webinar on May 14th that you all might want to join, called our annual spring festival is called the Flourish Festival. And they're going to do basically a Zoom exhibit showcasing all the incredible work that has been going on in those communities for the last year. So that's May 14th at noon. All over the country, there are incredible examples, kits that places are creating and then offering for distribution through an existing distribution system. So again, mapping how people are reaching older adults. Are the churches doing outreach to their elder congregants? How can you make your resources available through a system that's in place already in your community to reach the older adults? Partner, 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 partner. I'll say it again, partner, to get it done. Julie or Jen, do you want to add anything? I could talk forever on this, as you can tell. So
yeah, don't get us started. You know, the thing I was thinking about, and I just added this to my list, is right now as a gerontology program, we have students who are looking for internships, and the more traditional places that they might do their internships may not be accessible to them. I can tell you that we are already planning for August because we don't know how accessible our organizations will be. So if you don't feel as though you have the expertise, do you have some local talent in gerontology programs, therapeutic recreation programs, nursing programs, occupational therapy programs? We have them all across the state in small and large communities. And so again, it's about that relationship, but do you have relationships with your local colleges and universities, but maybe in not those more traditional arts programs types of ways. So, and if anyone's looking for interns and you're willing to do it virtually, please contact me, as we are all looking for some opportunities to for our students.
One thing I'll add there, Jen, is, and it's something that I didn't mention in the last time we did this, is, you know, the system is for serving older adults tends to be, it is highly regulated, but they're also kind of adjusting in this moment, which is really interesting. And HIPAA, I can never remember what it all stands for. Health Insurance, Privacy, something.
And Portability Act.
Portability Act, thank you. That protects the identity and health information of older adults. And so building community and doing outreach with older adults who are in a health setting, or if you have access related to a health setting, has meant that you really, some places are really overzealous in their enforcement of it, and you can't share anyone's name or any kind of information. You have to kind of really expunge that from any kind of storytelling or representation that they're making. But that's loosening as well. And what I would say, because there's such a clear need to connect, so I think on that front, just a note there to talk to, in that sense of partnership, talk to the person you're partnering with if you do connect with an aging care system about their current interpretation of HIPAA, so that you're aware of how to do that, particularly if you're doing any social media. If you do a Zoom thing, even having people's names revealed, the way we see all of our names revealed here, you may need to coach people through doing their name just as a first name. There's all kinds of little tricks around in there just to be aware of. I'm trying to think if there's a place where we could do some of that. Maybe we can host that on Timeslips on a news or a blog entry. I know I have some of my team on board and I just invented more work for them, but I think it's a really important thing for us to be aware of as we're doing some of these creative connection programming.
Thank you. I had to laugh when you both said, "Don't get me started," because that's exactly actually what we want to do. That's one of the reasons why you're here. Well, thank you both for that. Go ahead.
I'll talk a little bit more about some of the projects that I get breathless with excitement about it, and it's great partially because it's kind of piloting in Wisconsin. Again, just as part of this, what assets and resources do we have with Timeslips, and how can we turn them outward and make them available? One is our beautiful question approach, where we just ask beautiful, poetic, open-ended, no wrong answer questions that kind of open a sense of wonder. And there's a whole section on our Creativity Center on the Timeslips website that has all of them. And then we printed them as postcards. And then the publisher of the book, which was very kind of them, Harper, offered to help support print them, as did Leading Age, which is a major membership organization for nonprofit arts or aging services providers. And I'm busily addressing envelopes to ship out over 200,000 of these to across the country. And there's a good amount of them going out in Wisconsin. We have an 800 number set up for those beautiful questions for people to respond with voicemail. And then we set up a relationship with Wisconsin Public Radio for them to edit in a collage format for their Wisconsin Life series, so that we can share those family caregivers at home, you know, the Meals on Wheels systems, people in congregate settings, wherever people are, they can participate in that project. And that kind of a looping of getting these artistic expression, inviting expression, inviting people to connect to their larger community is both a sense of generosity and a sense of creativity that makes us feel good from both sides. Makes us really, I think, reduces stress, puts us in a state of flow. That's what we're aiming for. Yeah.
And
that's thrilling.
as we're thinking, Karen and Anne, about the next question, which talks about some best practices, the one thing I want to talk about is for those of you who are engaged in arts organizations and you're thinking about, you know, where does this fit? And sort of the nonprofit management side of me is thinking about ways that we can talk about this being a part of the mission-focused efforts that you're engaging in. If you're maybe not strategically planning around engaging older adults, now is the time. I'm just going to rattle off some statistics tied to the state of Wisconsin. In the next 20 years, we are looking nationally at 1 in 5 persons in this country will be 65 and above. In Wisconsin, the top third will be at least 1 in 3, if not 1 in 2. If we have anybody from Bayfield County, they are looking at almost being 1 in 2 persons, 60 and above, in the next 20 years. So I just want you to understand demographically, our state is aging significantly more rapid than other parts of the country. So if this isn't a part of your thing right now, it's time now to take this opportunity to make it your thing. There are significant resources available, and we'll be talking about that in the next question. I'm also going to jump to another statistic if any of you are interested in dementia, and we could have a whole series just tied to dementia, but there are about 100 or so different types of conditions that lead to dementia. Alzheimer's is often the one we most think of. The statistic is that you have about a 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 chance of having a dementia by the time you're about 80 years of age. And so again, as we are strategically thinking about our programming and ways that we can adapt, you know, I think both Anne and I could, again, speak for hours about adaptability of programming, adaptability of that hands-on approach. This is another thing to be considering. And for those of you, I would love at some point, Karen and Ann Katz, to have a survey of how many of you have been family caregivers, how many of you have had experiences with dementia. And what you may appreciate is that sometimes it can be very isolating. You can feel alone in that journey. And so that's the part of the loneliness that we're talking about. It's not necessarily, our institutions, as Ann Basting said, only about 5% of older adults reside in long-term care facilities. It's those people at home, it's the family members. So leading in now, Karen, to the third question.
Well, I'd love to piggyback on that. Thank you, Jen, for that picture. And particularly as a rural issue, it's a huge rural issue. I know that within arts organizations, there's a push. We need to get younger people. We need to get younger people. We need to get younger people. And I just want to emphasize that it is not mutually exclusive, that you can, I think particularly through this pandemic experience, and then also I think just generationally, young people are interested in engaging across the life course. That has been a huge treat for me as an educator, realizing that and mobilizing students cross-generationally. But you can do intergenerational programming and pair people. They they are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. Creativity as we age, it never stops being beneficial.
That's awesome. Thank you both for that. And Jen, I feel like you don't even need me. You've already segued perfectly into question 3. So let's go there. And that official question is, what are the best practices and goals of connecting arts groups, artists and performers, and elders?
One thing I wrote down a variety of things, but one thing as we're talking that has stuck out at me is how many of you even know where to begin in your local communities? Who are these people that coordinate programs like Meals on Wheels? Who are these activity directors at these facilities? Do you know these folks? And the beautiful thing about Wisconsin is that we have a lot of amazing aging coalitions, aging networks that are across the state. Up here in northern Wisconsin where I am, so WITC covers 11 counties. We have 7 networks that cross our 11 counties that are connecting the institutional settings as well as those home and community-based services, along with other services that are now seeing that increase in older adults, including domestic violence, homelessness. So the first place in my mind, the one-stop shop, is those aging and disabilities resource centers. Every single county has one, and oftentimes they may be the center of those local community-based networks. Wisconsin, if you're not aware, is also moving forward with efforts to become a dementia-capable state. If that is a new phrase or new term for you, I would love for you to look up that website, which is on the Department of Human Health Services website. In Wisconsin, that we are becoming a dementia-friendly state. Is your business dementia-friendly trained? And what does that mean? The good news is there is free training for your businesses to become dementia-friendly, so that you're looking at your physical plant. You're looking at how do we serve our customers? And now might be the time to put some of that free training under your belt so that you are preparing not only for the near future, but also in the long run with your physical plants and the services that you provide. Go ahead, Anne, were you going to say something? Oh, Karen?
I actually was. I'll take this opportunity to say, not only as people think about, training their volunteers and how to respond to audiences and patrons and visitors and that kind of thing. It seems to me that would translate very easily from the commercial to the nonprofit. I had another related thought that's just gone out my mind, so never mind. Go back to you.
Okay. A couple of other things that came out in my mind too is that we have an aging intellectual and developmental disabilities population. Many of them, in particular those that have Down syndrome, are also at risk for dementia at an earlier age. So again, aging related, but a whole other population that may not be on the forefront of your mind. A lot of the day programs, the respite-like programs, as Anne was saying earlier, are closed during this time. So that would be another group to engage in. And again, just being a good neighbor, being able to understand what's already happening around you and getting in those aging networks. If any of you are in northern Wisconsin and would like to engage, let me know, because I can get you tied up. But there's a lot of really cool stuff happening here that, again, that's not happening in other parts of the country.
So Jen, I remembered, and it was, we have a number of arts groups that are doing some really cool work in this area themselves already. And so as groups think about connecting with those aging networks in their counties, maybe calling forth some of the arts groups that are already doing good work in this area. And I'm sure Arts Wisconsin, and I know the Arts Board, would be happy to convene something going forward on this. I mean, it is my overt hope that from this session, we start developing a cohort of people who are interested in doing that and interested in learning more about that. And Ann Basting, I know you have some thoughts on this. Before I lose this thought, though, I just wanted to mention the piece about responsibility. You were talking about some amazing activities that are happening and things that people can do, and they're already being done, and connecting all kinds of people and ages with each other. This is a time when people are really burbling up and willing to have that and make those connections. There's a crucial piece that's responsibility related in this, however. What we cannot have is, you know, this amazing explosion of activity and lots of connections being made and people getting something, and then suddenly, hey, we're open for business again or whatever, and boom, we have all that stuff that we put on the back burner that's right here. So we turn our attention there, and there's crickets for the people who are older that we have connected with, because that is that's potentially worse than not having started anything at all. I'll put that out there, and maybe you guys can disagree with that. But I think that that's a key piece for people to keep in mind as they get into this work.
Well, disagreeing with that would be saying, I agree we should abandon them in about 6 months. And of course, I'm not going to say that. I think, though, that I'll go back to, I have like 5 comments I want to make. So I'll try to remember them all in my head. One, the interesting thing, if you look around at screens that are video, is we're in our homes. We're in a moment of personal and professional blurring that has really not happened for a very long, I don't know if it ever happened, that we're cognizant of our own challenges in this moment and how it feels to us as human beings. Again, I said earlier, like our own yearning to connect, and really earnestly trying to do things with and for other people. And that we don't forget, if we are connecting with older adults in our communities, that's us. And it's us. And we're also at a moment where the long-term care industry is going to change forever because of this moment. And that we can be part of that change, and it's not going to stop after this pandemic, even if this pandemic ends, right? I don't mean to be bleak about that, but you know, it's possible that we don't get a vaccine, and it's possible for mutations, and we may be looking at like a 9/11 threshold moment where certain things just become normal to us again. And we're in a place where we can shape what we want our own late life and how we can avoid isolation and work on that. So keeping that connection, that's what I mean. I think about identifying authentic connections to drive whatever actions you're taking right now. So that sense of personal and communal is linked. The other thing I wanted to say is another joy is Zoom has enabled me to connect with people who across the world who are doing some of this work and thinking about this work. And in one of them, I had the opportunity to learn, it was a nurse at University of Florida who said, we don't need to process this right now. What the arts need to do right now is relax us, distract us, and build our resilience. And so if you are doing, whether you're doing entertainment, I saw somebody's doing like their own version of Tiny Desk concerts. That's so soothing and relaxing and distracting. Fantastic. That in and of itself builds some resilience. But then there's also the folks who are doing engagement work, inviting expression, which builds on strengths. So if you're asking people, figuring out, we've been doing a project in Durham that you can see on our webinar page on Timeslips. You can see the little creative sessions in recordings as an example. And it's inviting people to build on whatever expressive strengths that they have, to build, and that's building resilience, to imagine their surroundings a little differently, to take ownership and agency of transforming them in some way into some art form, expressive form. That those are the things, those linking all of those things, the programs that relax, distract, and build resilience are, I think, what is a helpful thing to guide us as we shape these programs now. And I would add, again, I said it before, but creativity, expressiveness, and generosity are also both really helpful for building strength and well-being right now, which is, I think, what we all need.
Yeah. Jen, anything to add to that? Because I have a couple of thoughts right now.
I do agree with you, Karen. Back to your original comment about sustainability. I think, as with anything, let's think about those grant opportunities, and we think big, right? We're implementing such cool and innovative things using grant dollars, and I'm seeing in the chat window people looking for grant dollars, and they're out there. But part of those grants is also making the sustainability piece. And again, I think that's why operationalizing it into things like your strategic plan. What from your mission can you pull to be able to speak to just your general role as a member of the community, whether it's your local arts communities, or the greater community as well. So sustainability is a thing, absolutely.
Okay. And Basting, you were saying how you elicit creativity as well. And one of the things that George Sugros, who heads up the Arts Board, noted this week when the CDC responded to the question, how were we caught so flat-footed at this pandemic in this country? And the response was a lack of imagination. And what makes that even more critical is that was exactly the response. There were 4 reasons given for why our response was so flat-footed at 9/11. A lack of imagination. And so as we think about this sector and the critical nature of our work, this isn't just, nice fluffy stuff, and everybody on this call knows that. But to have that so starkly brought to my attention this week was really interesting.
I agree, but I think it's something unique to our, I don't want to get a whole economic critique, but capitalism puts us on a quarterly report system. And we see what's right in front of us. And that's been part of the reason we've been able to deny and isolate aging, because it's a long-term thinking. That's why climate change is so hard for us to act on, because it's super long-term thinking, although it's getting shorter and shorter every day. And pandemic, you do have to imagine it happening, but it's also long-term thinking. And that's what we fail at, and where we can turn to Native populations, 7-generation, thinking of, it's not about us. It's about 7 generations from now. And what if we thought that way? Time, that's the other benefit of this moment to me, is that it's reorienting the way we think about time. And that is something, I think, to me, one of the things I'm starting in I grabbed some new journals from Boswell Books, trying to support the independent bookstores. And one of them is, what are the things I want to keep from this moment? And that's one of them, is how am I thinking differently about time? And how can that benefit not just me and what I do, but my organization and my family and my community?
I apologize, I have a bad connection, so I just got kicked out but came back in. And Katz, I hope you're able to capture the entire chain of chats, since I have now lost that by selecting all, copying and pasting it into a Word document would be awesome. Okay.
That's exactly what I've done.
I love that. I know we're getting on we're at 10:45 now, and at this point I was going to invite Jen and B to kind of share some kind of final wrap-up thoughts or things you hadn't had a chance to share. But I also wanted to request that Ann Basting talk just a little bit about the story of the man who came and danced with his mother through the window and her my son response. If you could do that, that would be awesome.
Yes, when Timeslips, we did a couple of webinars on, which are, you can go to the webinar page and watch them. And we talked about engagement in the time of quarantine and that, and different mechanisms. And there's the mail, and we have some programs on that. There's the telephone, phone tree systems, there's computer, and then there's outside the building. And now in stay at home, outside the building is a little, you have to kind of legitimize going to the building. You can, you just have to legitimize it. And before all those orders kicked in around the country, artists were just pouring it. There were all kinds of creative things happening around the outside of buildings. Chalk drawings to make whimsical little things for people to look at. And let me also say what Jen and I didn't say before is that the staff is so stressed out and they're always understaffed and they're not getting the same hero treatment that hospital workers are. And it's really painful because they're sacrificing themselves, their families, to keep elders safe in these care systems. And it's just heartbreaking to see. So whatever programs you do, you might also think about doing it for them to help boost their spirits. And we have an artist collaborator from one of our Kentucky projects, the I Won't Grow Up project, where he's a set designer, lives in New Orleans, and his mother is in an assisted living. And he simply would go and dance with her outside the window in the front lobby. And we have a little video of that I think is on our site someplace that you can see, definitely on our Facebook page. And his mother is just laughing so beautifully and just, silly wiggling. I also gave for May Day baskets to my parents who are they're in independent living in here in Milwaukee, but I gave them some bubbles. And it's just tiny little things like that transform the moment. Dancing at the window, music at the window, our own, I want to call out Sammy Goodrich and her partner, Lauren Decker, she's an opera singer, and Sammy is also a singer, going to a care home right by their home and singing requests outside the windows. And the staff really reporting that changes the mood and uplifts the spirit all day long, not just for the elders, but for the staff as well. So the window and outside the building work, particularly with really inventive mural work, there's some really inventive possibilities, as well as creativity kits that some art centers are putting together.
Thank you for sharing that. I didn't want this to end without you making the point about the heroes that are working in the care centers. So I'm thinking that there may be some questions that have been posed in the chat box, and if you want to pull any of those out. Otherwise, we've got 10 minutes to 11, and I did want to invite Ann and Jen to share any thoughts they haven't shared yet. So let's do that for the next 5 minutes or so, and then let's talk about these breakout rooms about which we are so interested in experimenting.
To see if they work.
Yeah.
The last thing that I would add is, I don't know about you all and in the work that you do, but silos are exhausting to me. Organizational silos, departmental silos, whatever. And so in my work here with our gerontology program in Northern Wisconsin, we are working to bust down the silos. Long-term care, elder services in our communities, all of them are siloed amongst themselves. And so we have an entire industry serving people who are 65 and above, and including our families, family caregivers, that are all significantly siloed across this country. And so as we infuse all of you into the world of gerontology and working with older adults, Help us to bust those silos down, help us to understand the importance of your work, educate us, and then look for opportunities for us to educate you in return. As I was thinking about our planning call, I had mentioned about potential barriers and potential fears that you may have in considering this work. And, you know, I think for all of us to even just have conversations about what that might be, because we don't want to build another silo in fear or barriers. In my mind, let's take them down. We've got way too much work to do with our older adults and families and communities to allow that to get in the way.
Thank you, Jen. I just want to continue that. One of our participants asked about what you mean by the word silo.
So if we think about, I'm going to use the structure of hospice. If any of you have had experience with hospice in your lives, hospice is really a framework for supporting older adults or individuals who are at end of life, 6 months or less to live should their disease run its normal course. Hospice is built upon the framework of an interdisciplinary team where everybody is responsible, including the patient or participant and family, for the comfort and care of the person who is living until their death. That is a very cohesive environment. If we take a step back out and think about sometimes even educational institutions, if your program is in a building across campus, you are operating in your own silo. I've even heard, I'll just say horror stories of, oh, well, she's on the 3rd floor and our program's on the 1st floor. We don't quite know what they do up there. Right? So we get to know each other, right? So silos meaning that we're all operating in our own little cone and not getting to know what's outside of our world. The long-term care industry, if any of you are familiar with the Pioneer Network and had mentioned Leading Age, just the long-term care institutions are in the mode of a significant culture change where they're shifting to a person-centered, more home-like environments, and they are busting silos very slowly in some instances. So I hope that gives a couple examples to think from.
Awesome, thank you. Any other pressing questions that have come up in the chat box? Otherwise, this is a hack for everyone who doesn't want to wait for the recording. If you do your right click and select all and copy, you can have the transcript of the, not the transcript, but the chat box exchanges for your own use later. Otherwise, you can wait and it'll be available with the recording. Anne, Ann K, any other questions that are screaming out there?
There are 2 other questions, and if Anne or Jen can talk about them, that'd be great. One is about, and you've talked about this, both of you, reaching older adults in rural areas where broadband service is spotty or difficult to get. And then, so that's one question.
RADIO, radio. It's awesome. And church phone tree systems, congregations are, again, it's just asset mapping. Look at the systems that are in place reaching people already, and then just piggyback to get it out there. To me, I just was I'm mentoring a fellow through the Global Brain Health Institute, Cheyenne Mize, who's was a partner of ours, incredible musician based out of Louisville in the Kentucky Project. She's doing a radio show, live radio show in partnership with care homes and doing requests, and then also creating song structures for them to actually write original music that they play. It's just so endlessly inventive. And my kind of parting words, I mean, this coming from, I've done a reimagining of Homer's Odyssey in a live, original, professionally produced play inside a long-term care community in Milwaukee. We reimagined the story of Peter Pan in 3 immersive theater productions in rural Kentucky. Just don't think of the barriers, and don't underestimate, don't have low expectations, but adapt what you do into building on the strengths of every person, whatever they have. If they're in late stage Alzheimer's, maybe they can echo and create a movement with their finger. There's always expressive strength available to people. So dream big and invite people into meaningful, almost impossible things, and you can feel the shift in meaningfulness in people's lives. You're creating a legacy for them to be the last important, beautiful thing that they do, that other people value. So just, you know, we bring low expectations to that population, and it is part of why there is despair. If we lose that and gain kind of confidence in our ability to reach and invite people into shared expression, and believe that what they're doing is beautiful, it is beautiful, not only to them, but to us, and gives us hope for our own aging as well. Boy, that was like a sermon. Sorry about that.
That was gorgeous.
I'm glad it was recorded.
I was just about to ask another question, but I'm not putting anything else on top of that. That's awesome. And Katz, do you want to just take us into what this breakout thing is for those who are brave enough to join us on this adventure?
And let me just thank Anne for that, and thank both Anne and Jen for their expertise, knowledge, and wonderful words. Before I get into the breakout part, I just want to say that we have captured everything in the chat box. There will be a recording. We will have notes written up with trying to answer some of the questions, or at least direct you towards resources that will answer some of the questions. We're going to get, we have resources listed. I'm going to get resources from Anne and Jen. That will be sent out to our list, the Arts Board and Arts Wisconsin's, and we will post them on our social media links. And feel free to get in touch with us anytime to ask any question you want.
Yeah, and for those of you who really do want to dive deeper into this and be part of a cohort, please put your names and email addresses in the chat box. That way we don't have to track you. We can just have you there. That would be really awesome. All right, sorry, back to the break room experiment.
No, that's good. Timeslips does, anyway, we'll share as many resources as we can. So now we're going to, the system will sort everyone automatically into break rooms. We'll have 6 break rooms, depending on how many of you can stay with us. Great. If not, as we said, there's lots of follow-up, and we have ways to get to people and keep bringing you together. Basically, this is very simple. It's only 10 minutes. And basically, we want you to share one point from the session that has stood out for you, and to ask a question. Again, we will hopefully have the assigned facilitators in each room, and we'll follow up with you afterwards. So basically, I'm going to do this now. Hopefully it will work.
Everybody gets 1 minute in the break
and
room.
everybody gets 1 minute. Thank you. You can, you know, this is an open session. It's open space. So introduce yourselves, talk about a point that stood out for you, ask a question, and then we'll bring you back as sort of an ending point at the end. Okay, here we go.
Oh, click join.
Yes, you have to join the room, but right now the rooms are available. Okay, look at that. Okay, hi Tony. I am in a room. Okay, here we are in the breakout room. So far, I think we have 5 people. That's good. Can we all go around and introduce ourselves quickly? I don't know. Yeah, unmute yourselves. Everybody can unmute yourselves. And Tony, it might be just you and me. And Sheila, this is good. Okay, can you unmute yourselves and say who you are? Hi, Tony. And then after that will be Sheila.
Oh, good, Sheila. That's great.
So Tony, introduce yourself.
I'm Tony Asher from the Pump House in La Crosse.
Okay, and Sheila? Let's see, Sheila, are you there? I'm not getting her, Tony. Do you know her?
Yeah, she's like our resource person at the county.
Oh, wonderful.
I tried to work with her on a couple projects. I was so overwhelmed with other things in my life that this dropped off.
Oh my gosh, overwhelmed is the state of play right now.
People keep
It
thinking
is-
like, oh, Tony, you must have nothing to do now. You know,
Yeah, somebody said something like, are you getting more sleep? Like, no. Actually, this is an aside, but I listened to a public radio thing about why we're all having bigger dreams now, like more intense dreams. And the woman who was the sleep expert said something like, well, it's because we can all stay in bed a little longer and we're not jumping out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning with our alarm clocks. I'm like, oh, who's doing that? Not me.
I've had one day I didn't come into work since the beginning of March. And it's just,
So are you actually able to go into work?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the only person in the
You're
building.
the only one there, right. Well, I worked at home anyway, so, yeah. So Sheila, are we really not able to get you in here? Because I can see her on our screen.
Yeah, I see her too.
Right, there she is, but I can't hear her.
I just see her name.
I know. Oh, wait, I think, let's see, I'm sending her a message. Sheila, can you hear us and talk to us? So Tony, did you cancel ArtSpire?
Oh, Anne.
I'm so sorry.
No, I have not canceled ArtSpire.
Oh, that's brave of you.
That's one way of putting it.
What are your plans then?
Well, so it was just bizarre. So I don't know how long ago the NAA contacted me and said they had a grant available and that
Did you apply for this grant?
they invited me to apply for a grant
Awesome.
for ArtSpire. Right, awesome, right?
Right, so amazing.
$10,000 grant. And of course, I was still nervous about it, but I went through all the rules you have to do with the NEA. You know?
Right.
And I got this $10,000 grant for ArtSpire.
Amazing.
Bizarre. Well, now because I got that grant, I qualified to apply for their $50,000.
Oh my God. You go, girl.
Can't cancel ArtSpire on the chance we might get the 50.
I totally get that.
It's
Totally.
so I'm waiting, you know, the deadline was what, May 4th on the NEA grant.
Right.
So, and I also applied to the Wisconsin Arts Board grant in case I
Right.
don't get the NEA one.
Well, if you, right. So are you making plans for a virtual arts?
Yeah.
spectrum?
And the artists are all contacting me and they're, oh, it's time to create more stuff. We can't wait to sell it at ArtSpire. And I'm just,
Okay. Are those people not paying attention to the
social distancing.
do they not understand what's happening out there? We're all magically thinking, right? We all want to believe that on whatever the date is, June 12th or something, that we will be able to go to a house and do this. Yes, we totally believe that.
Things were closed down during our last show, but we had actually sold quite a bit of art. So what we did is we did a curbside pickup by appointment only.
Wow.
So we have the last piece of that's going to be picked up Friday. So the artists are thinking like, oh, the Pump House will sell my artwork.
The Pump House is magic.
It's going to be magic.
They are the only arts organization in the entire state that's allowed to be open. That's fantastic.
So Anne, yeah, I'm doing a lot of reimagining.
The creativity out there is astounding, really. It's incredibly inspiring. It's impossible though. I mean, yeah. And things will be so different.
No, I could have just turned down that 10 grand, but then the 50 grand that could keep us going for a year.
Right. Oh my gosh.
I know, so I have to figure out.
And you know, when I've been talking to presenters, they've, the whole force majeure and insurance and canceling things and having to pay deposits. I am assuming that there's something, if you cancel, if the stay-at-home orders are still in place, then, you'll be able to get X insurance and, yeah.
It's not simple.
We have tickets for Come From Away at Overture in August.
Oh.
Of course will be canceled, but it's not canceled yet. And I said to the program director, Jared, how come you haven't canceled it yet? Does that mean we can go? He said, no, it's because the governor's orders are still in place, but we don't know if they'll be in place in August. So if we cancel now, so, like when they had their run of Wicked going on, when everything started to shut down, and they canceled like at 5 o'clock before an 8 o'clock performance because that's what they could do. Anyway, I'm supposed to ask you, Tony, what you took away from this and what your question might be.
You mean from this particular
From
session?
this particular session.
What webinars is everybody doing now? Sometimes I'm double booked on them. This one was really interesting. Thank you, Anne, for putting it together.
Yeah, I like to do it every month.
I was totally unaware of the statistics about how Wisconsin is an aging population.
We have done presentations at conferences about that, and I'm going to send out some resources. We are an aging, emptying out state.
Yeah, and my board is always trying to push me to do programming for younger people. And I always remember Jim O'Connell said not to worry about that because the white hair people, they are replaceable.
Yes, they are.
Or you'll always have those.
Yeah.
But yeah, and ways to partner, and I'm really big on partnerships, but to partner with people who are already reaching. I didn't know only 5% of the aging population lives in assisted living or nursing homes. I was blown away by that.
But we're very focused on them right now, of course.
Yeah.
And people have so many different living situations, and so much of it is isolated.
And then, do you try to get those people to your venue, or do you try to take something to them?
Yes.
Yeah. There was a while we were
all of those things.
We were talking about, and I don't know if this was a broader discussion or just amongst the arts groups here in La Crosse, but we were discussing starting something like Uber or Lyft, but for the arts.
Ooh.
And where somehow we would join together and we would offset the cost of that ride, because that was an obstacle in our surveys that people came up for people coming to the arts. Oh, it's hard to find parking, yada, 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 That was so stressful. And we thought, well, what if we had an arts lift? And
arts lift, that's such a YFT. That's great.
And it just was something that just went to the venues.
Right.
Picked you up outside the front door afterwards.
And all you need is time, money, and staff to do it.
Oh, that's it, Anne.
Oh. Did I ever tell you that story? I had a great mentor when I first started this job, and we were talking about stuff, and I said, oh, if only I had, the resources to do that, whatever it was we were talking about. And she said, well, there's nothing you can't do with time, money, and staff. And she said it so casually, but I say it every day because that is all we need. That's all you need. You just need to figure out how to do something. And there are so many great ideas out there. And some of them you get to actually do because you figured it out. And then keeping it going is the other part.
Yes.
As you know so well, I'm sure you've heard me say this. It's easy to open an art center, really hard to keep it going.
Well, and that's another thing I'm wondering what to do, Anne. All of our exhibits are booked out for 2 years. What do I tell these poor artists that have prepared?
Right, because, and of course, going along with that, surrounding all of that, the fact that it could be that long until we can actually let people in any real way back into our facilities.
We've talked about one-way traffic through the building,
Well, right,
6 feet apart. And then that sounded pretty good until we got talking about the bathroom.
yes, exactly, exactly.
One person in the bathroom at a time.
Right, right.
And we are finally, the bid documents are going out on Friday for our theater renovation.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of bizarre, but we're doing a $250,000.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
It is awesome.
It's kind of nice because we're dark now.
Right,
It
right,
was supposed to be done by the end of August.
right.
The company that makes the seats is closed.
Gosh darn it.
All this is
Right.
going to drag on forever.
Right. Okay, Tony, I want to talk more about this, but I'm taking us out of this breakout room and going back to the main thing, okay?
Oh, okay.
So we'll talk more.
All right.
Okay, let's see. All the breakout rooms will close in 54 seconds. My husband just said, he looks like you're having fun. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but
Sorry, my life.
so I can't tell if you all are in our breakout room or if everyone is just coming back into the session.
We're back in the session.
Okay, thank you, Philip. So I would like to, I don't know if the facilitators are on, but I'd love to have any, we've got like 3 minutes here. If any of you want to unmute yourself and talk about one thing that struck you and or that you're in your group and one question you have, please also, if you want to just put it in the chat box, we'll capture that. But go, let's see, go, somebody go. Don't be shy.
I guess one thing that struck me is just the unique perspectives coming from all around Wisconsin that, you know, that are coming to light. You know, people that are not highlighted as heroes, certain avenues and groups that are resources that, you know, wouldn't have normally been on the forethought. So I think this
Right.
platform has been exceptional for just broadening everyone's horizons.
And on that note, we're all back.
Right, we are. So Karen, I'm just, before we were all back, I was just having people sort of shout out or say. So Taylor is, want to finish that thought, Taylor, and then Karen, we'll go to you since you were a facilitator.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much the thought. And
Okay,
I just
and
have any questions. for you.
I'm typing it out. I'm typing this out in the chat box because it's easier for me to capture it afterwards than go to a Word document. Okay, Karen.
Awesome. What
I'm
I
gonna call on
love
the
about
facilitators now.
what I love about the breakout room thing is that when you say 2 minutes, you mean 2 minutes, and then it gives the the countdown, 45 seconds, 40 seconds.
Yeah,
And
I
then
saw that.
no matter where you are in your conversation, you are put into the main room, which I love.
Right.
Except if you're doing a small breakout in the main room, that can be problematic. Oh well,
Yeah,
other than
right.
that.
Anyway, so what was, tell us what
nice
you
to
talked
see.
about.
So nice to see so many faces familiar here, and some new ones. So me as a facilitator, we had 4 people in our group, and there were 2 of those 4, 2 were in Spark programs, or run Spark programs, the John Michael Kohler Art Center and the Woodson Museum. And so that was fun just to see Ann Basting's touch, you know, on so many, on over half of our participants. And then the Amy from the Madison talking about the aging services and the advocacy programs that she's involved with was just really cool. So that's us. How many other facilitators did you have in the end?
Well, we had 6 total, including me, so I can see, so I'll, and so do you want to make any other comments, Karen? Oh, and Okay, Ann Basting just put a synopsis in there. Anything else,
Awesome.
Ann, you want to add to that?
We had the best group, so sorry about you all
Yes.
other ones.
I'm sure that's true.
I'm just kidding. Just being stupid. Just, this power of just acknowledging that it's really hard to focus and pick and know what to do first. And that I mentioned that this trajectory of being sort of going from shock to fear to this incredible productivity of like every single arts organization putting all their programming online, to exhaustion from that, to now in this moment of opportunities for really deep partnership, and that partnership can be infrastructure that lasts beyond this moment and takes us forward, and that those partnerships can be across arts organizations as well as, and we had the Racine Theater Guild and the Racine Art Museum, RAM, in our breakout group. And as Trisha held up her little notebook, it says, I have a note to call you on here. So those partnerships are starting and can take us through this moment. And also that if you do large things usually in your arts organization, like the Racine Theater Guild, Jocelyn was saying they were doing Mamma Mia, that you can break those into about 1,000 activities. Instead of thinking of it as one thing, think about, where could we go? Could we say we're in Greece? Could we say we're doing, think about travel, think about song, think about, the history component, think about, and break that thing that's usually huge into a lot of different engagement opportunities that you could partner with different people on. The end.
That's great. Thank you. So I just want to comment that there's a bunch of you still on this call. We're past the time we said we were going to end, but I think we can keep it going, obviously, for a few more minutes because people seem engaged, and feel free to drop off anytime. I'm going to go to Jen. Jen, where are you?
I'm here.
There you are. So I know you and Carrie were in the same group, and she said you were taking notes. And would you please share out?
Yep. So one thing that Carrie had shared was just, again, looking for and accessing those structured opportunities to connect. And certainly, I think moving forward, just with this larger network that we have that's even participating in this call, the desire and the motivation is there. And so just being able to connect with each other on that. The one beautiful thing is Rob from the ADRC of Dodge County, who is a dementia care specialist, is on the call with us. And on my notes, but I failed to mention, in the state, if you are not aware, we have a role called the dementia care specialist. Not every county has one, but they are folks who are housed within the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and their position is to provide education, support, screening on dementia. And it is an asset, again, only Wisconsin has. I heard California does too, but Midwestern wise, we have it, and they are a tremendous resource. They are often the ones that are facilitating the dementia-friendly business training or coordinating it. Even if a particular county doesn't have a DCS, there may be a dementia lead. So if you think about dementia and it feels daunting, they are your person. And Rob is here from Dodge County. If any of you are from Dodge County, feel free to connect with him.
And Rob's going to get a whole slew of postcards. I'm so
Right.
excited. No, I mean, I'm shipping him hundreds of postcards. The other thing I'll say is just offering, Timeslips has a lot of free resources. We are built accessibly. All of our methodology is accessible to people with dementia. It's simple and easy. It's online training. Use those resources. We're there for you.
And if you want more formalized education, I think that Karen knows this, but I don't know if Ann Basting and Ann Katz know that our 2-year associate's degree in gerontology is now also available completely online, including some live pieces where we engage our many talented folks across the state. So if any of you are interested in more credit-based college education, we are also here to support you. You do not have to be in Northern Wisconsin.
Great. Thank you for that.
Right. Who else was a facilitator? Sorry.
Well, Carrie and Jen were in the same group.
Elaine?
You just posted some notes. Do you want to add to them? Do you want to, Elaine Malley, do you want to add any comments to what you posted?
Oh, yes. the other thing we talked about it was how the world will change. Like, how do we recreate a world so that elders aren't so isolated in the future, so that this doesn't become such a daunting task? How do we rethink that?
Nice.
We are all,
Nice.
that is on all of our minds. Karen.
Yeah, that is such a good comment, and that's one that deserves more exploration. Danielle also put something about creating authentic engagement and how to do that. I think there are a lot of really good questions and thoughts percolating right now. So, not to interrupt the facilitators' report outs, but once those are done, I just want to reassure everybody, if you put your name and email address in the chat box saying, we want to continue this, we will make sure that we gather you and continue this.
Yes. Thank you, Karen. I see that Anne has just left us because she had another meeting. Thanks, Anne. Thanks to Jen. Thanks.
Everyone's waving.
Yes, everyone's waving. Thank you.
Bye.
Board for partnering on this. Recording will be available soon. I'm going to put the notes together now. And thank you all and be well.
Yes. Thanks again, Jen and Ann Bastings and Ann Katz. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks
Bye.
to everyone. Ending the meeting now. Take care.
Bye. Bye.